Jack was sitting in the corner of a noisy spaceport cafe, sipping a bitter cup of recycled coffee, when a shadow fell across his table. He looked up to see a tall alien with silver skin and sharp black eyes, dressed in fine clothes that didn't belong in a place like this. "Are you Jack Marlowe?" the alien asked, voice low but firm. Jack nodded slowly, wondering if this was about his past, his debts, or worse, his old military record. The alien sat down without waiting for an invitation, his eyes scanning the room as if making sure no one else was listening. "I have a job for you," he said. "Simple work, good pay." Jack had heard those words before, and they almost always meant trouble. "What's the job?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The alien leaned forward. "I need you to escort 2 young women to the city of Velas. That's all." Jack frowned. "That's it? Just escort them?" "That's it," the alien replied quickly. "Maybe too quickly. They're my nieces, twins, and I want them safe. No questions asked." The pay was good, far too good for such an easy task. Jack could feel the trap in the offer. But the credits were enough to clear half his debts. Still, something in the alien's eyes told him there was more to this. "Why me?" Jack asked, the alien's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because you're human, and that matters." Jack didn't like the sound of that, but he agreed. Telling himself it would just be a few days of work, the alien's relief was visible, but before leaving, he paused and gave Jack a strange warning. "Do not let them out of your sight, not for a moment," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "and never let them wander at night." Jack opened his mouth to ask why, but the alien had already walked away, disappearing into the crowd the next morning. Jack went to the docking bay to meet his passengers. The twins were waiting by a small silver transport ship, and the moment he saw them, he felt something tighten in his chest. They were identical in every detail, tall, graceful, with pale green skin that shimmered faintly under the light, and eyes like deep ocean water. One of them smiled at him warmly, stepping forward to offer her hand. The other stayed back, her gaze locked on Jack with an intensity that made him shift uncomfortably. "I'm Lyra," the smiling one said, her voice soft and melodic. "This is Vera," she added, nodding toward her sister. Vera didn't speak, just studied Jack like she was trying to see through his skin as they boarded the transport. Jack noticed something odd. Neither carried luggage, not even a small bag. "Travel light?" he asked, trying to make conversation. Lyra just smiled again. "We have everything we need." Vera finally spoke, her voice low and even. "Everything." The journey began quietly, the hum of the engines filling the silence between them. Jack kept glancing at the twins, trying to decide if the merchant's warning was just overprotective paranoia or something more. When he caught Vera watching him again, she didn't look away. It was as if she was waiting for him to make a mistake. That night, they stopped at a small trade station to rest. Jack took the single bed in the room next door, leaving the twins together in theirs. He had just drifted off to sleep when he felt a presence in the room. His eyes snapped open, and there was Vera, standing beside his bed, her face only inches from his. She didn't move, didn't blink, just whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was soft but carried a strange weight, as if the words weren't meant for his ears, but for something inside him. Before Jack could respond, she turned and walked out. Silent as a shadow, Jack lay awake for hours, trying to shake the feeling her words had left behind. When morning came, Lyra acted as if nothing had happened, cheerful and talkative. Vera avoided his eyes, but Jack could feel the tension between them. Whatever this escort job was, it wasn't going to be simple. And deep down, Jack knew he hadn't been hired to protect them. He had been brought here for something else entirely. Jack tried to push the memory of Vera's whisper out of his mind as they left the trade station. but the sound of her voice lingered, like an echo that refused to fade. The twins sat across from him in the small cabin, Lyra staring out the window while Vera's gaze stayed fixed on him. He told himself it was just her nature to be watchful, but every time their eyes met, he felt as if she knew something about him he didn't know himself. Halfway through the day, Lyra leaned forward, her tone playful but oddly sharp. "Jack, do you trust us?" It was a strange question so early in the journey. He gave the only answer he could. "I trust you enough to take this job." She smiled at that, but Vera looked away, her jaw tight. By evening, they reached a fork in the route. Jack followed the map the merchant had given him, pointing toward the main road to Velas. But Lyra touched his arm. "Not that way," she said softly. "We know a faster path." Jack frowned. "That road's marked as closed. It's been abandoned for years." Vera spoke for the first time in hours. "It's not abandoned, it's forgotten." Against his better judgment, he followed their directions. The path led them into a barren valley, the air dry and strangely still. The silence was so deep that even the hum of the transport felt too loud. Jack kept glancing at the scanner. No signs of other travelers. No wildlife, not even insects. They stopped for the night beside a cluster of jagged black rocks. The twins sat together, speaking in their own language, their voices low and urgent. Jack caught only fragments, words that made no sense to him, but the way they kept glancing at him told him he was the topic. When darkness fell, the stars above seemed unnaturally bright. Jack lay down, keeping his weapon close. He had just closed his eyes when a faint scraping sound reached his ears. Opening them, he saw both twins standing at the edge of the camp, staring toward the rocks. Their posture was tense, as if they were waiting for something or someone. Jack rose quietly. Approaching them, Lyra turned her head slightly, her voice almost a whisper. "Don't come closer." Her tone wasn't angry, it was warning. Vera stepped forward, raising her hand as if to signal him to stop. Her eyes caught the starlight, glowing faintly in the dark. Something moved in the shadows beyond the rocks, a tall, thin figure, its shape distorted as if the air around it bent. Jack's instincts screamed danger, but the twins didn't run. Instead, they both looked back at him, their expressions unreadable, and in that moment, Jack understood they had brought him here for a reason, and whatever it was about to step out of the dark. The figure in the shadows didn't walk toward them, seemed to glide, its movements smooth and unnatural. Jack's hand tightened on his weapon. But Lyra's voice cut through the night, calm and steady. "Don't shoot." That alone was enough to make him hesitate. The thing stopped a few paces away, its body hidden beneath a dark, shifting cloak that seemed alive. Two narrow eyes glowed faintly from the hood. And then it spoke in a voice that sounded like wind passing through a broken pipe. The words were alien, but strangely, Jack felt he understood them not with his mind, but somewhere deeper, before he could question it. Vera stepped forward. Holding out a small silver sphere, the figure reached for it, long fingers curling around the object. The instant it touched the sphere, a shockwave of warm air rippled through the valley, and the jagged rocks around them began to hum. Jack stumbled back, the ground vibrating beneath his boots. Lyra grabbed his arm, steadying him. Her smile was faint but unmistakable. "You opened the lock," she said, as if he should already know what that meant. He shook his head, confused and angry. "What lock? What is this?" But neither twin answered. The figure turned toward Jack, its eyes burning brighter. Then it dropped the sphere into his hands. The metal was hot, almost pulsing, and as soon as he touched it, he felt a rush of images in his mind, flashes of places he'd never been, faces he didn't know, and a symbol he couldn't forget, even if he tried. When the visions faded, the figure was gone, as if it had never been there. Jack's breathing was heavy, his hands trembling. What the hell just happened? He demanded. Lyra and Vera exchanged a look. And for the first time since meeting them, both smiled the same exact smile. Vera spoke, her voice carrying a quiet certainty. The first test is over. She reached for the sphere in his hands. But he didn't let go. Something deep inside told him that giving it up would change everything. And as the rocks around them grew silent again, Jack realized the easy escort job was already gone, replaced by something far bigger and far more dangerous. Asterisk, they camped by a shallow stream that night, the water glinting silver under the alien moonlight. Jack sat apart from the twins. Turning the sphere over in his hands, it was warm, almost alive, and every time his fingers brushed the strange markings on its surface, he felt a faint hum in his chest, like it was echoing his heartbeat. Lyra broke the silence first. Walking over with a calm smile, she sat beside him, close enough that he could smell the faint, sweet scent of her skin. "You should rest," she said softly. "Tomorrow will be harder." Jack looked at her sharply. "Harder than what?" "You still haven't told me what's going on." Before she could answer, Vera's voice came from the shadows. "Because if we told you, you might try to leave." She stepped into the moonlight, her eyes reflecting the glow, her gaze locked on Jack. "But now it's too late for that." Lyra glanced at her sister, something unspoken passing between them. Then she reached out and touched Jack's chest, right over his heart. At the instant, her palm pressed against him, the sphere in his hands pulsed brighter, and Jack felt the world around him tilt. The stream's gentle trickle faded away, replaced by the sound of distant chanting. The air grew warmer, the moonlight dimmed, and shapes moved at the edges of his vision-robed figures, all watching him. Lyra's voice was still there, but now it echoed inside his head. "You are not here to protect us, Jack. You are here to complete us." He tried to pull away, but her touch held him in place. Vera stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Enough," she said sharply, and just like that, the warmth faded. The chanting stopped, and the camp was silent again. Jack's breathing was ragged, his palms slick with sweat. Lyra lowered her hand slowly, her eyes searching his face. "You felt it," she whispered. "The connection." But before he could speak, Vera pulled her sister back, glaring at Jack as if warning him not to push. For more that night, Jack didn't sleep. The sphere lay beside him, its faint hum matching the beat of his heart, and every time he glanced toward the twins, they were awake too, watching him through the dim silver light, as if waiting for him to finally understand why he was really here. They were only a day from Vila's when trouble found them. The sun was high, the heat shimmering off the cracked road when a shadow swept over the transport. Jack's instincts kicked in before his mind caught up. He slammed the brakes and grabbed his rifle. Figures dropped from the cliffs above, lean and fast, their armor marked with jagged red symbols. They weren't here for loot. Their eyes were locked on him, not the twins. Jack ducked behind the transport as plasma bolts tore through the air. Lyra was already moving, her hands flashing in complex patterns, energy snapping between her fingers. Vera leaped forward with a speed that made Jack's gut tighten. She didn't hesitate. Her blade cut down the first attacker before he could fire again. The rest hesitated, and that was enough for Jack to pick off two more. But even as they fell, more were climbing down the cliffs, surrounding them inside. Jack shouted, but neither twin moved toward safety. Instead, Lyra grabbed his arm, dragging him toward the open ground. "No, you stay with us," she insisted. Her voice wasn't a ply, was an order. Jack had no time to argue. The attackers were closing in. They fought together in a way that didn't make sense, like they had trained with him for years, anticipating his moves before he made them. When the last raider fell, the air smelled of scorched metal and blood. Jack's heart was still hammering when he realized none of the bodies had touched the twins. Every strike had been aimed for him, every shout from the raiders had his name in it. He turned to them, his voice rough. Why were they after me? Vera wiped her blade clean, her eyes sharp. Because you're not just an escort. Jack Lyra stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. You are the last piece we need. Jack stared at them, stunned. For what? Lyra's smile was soft, but there was nothing gentle in her words. To take back what is ours and to make you ours as well. Asterisk. Asterisk, the towers of villas rose in the distance. Black stone spires twisting into the sky like the claws of some ancient beast. Jack had been here before, but never like this, never with two alien women watching his every move, as if each step he took was part of a test he didn't know he was taking. Instead of heading toward the merchant's safe house, the twins led him through narrow, winding streets that smelled of incense and rain-soaked stone. The crowds thinned until they were alone, their footsteps echoing between the towering walls. Jack slowed, glancing around. This isn't the way. Lyra didn't even look back. It's the only way, she said. Vera pushed open a pair of heavy bronze doors at the end of the alley. The moment Jack stepped inside, the air changed cooler. Heavier, filled with a faint vibration that seemed to sink into his bones. They stood in a vast hall lit by floating orbs of pale light. At the far end, armored guards knelt, their heads bowed not to the twins, but to him. Jack froze, every muscle tensing. What is this? He asked, his voice low. Vera stepped beside him, her tone even. This is where you decide. Lyra circled to his other side, her hand brushing against his arm. Walk away now, and you will never see us again. Stay, and you will stand beside us when we take back the throne. Jack's mouth was dry, his thoughts racing. I didn't sign up for a throne, he muttered. Vera's eyes narrowed. You didn't sign up for survival either, but you've done that just fine. The guards rose in unison, the sound of their armor echoing through the hall. Lyra leaned in, her voice almost a whisper. We're not asking you, Jack. We're telling you. And before he could answer, the bronze doors slammed shut, the echo rolling through the hall. Like distant thunder, Jack stood frozen as the sound of the doors locking echoed behind him. The pale lights above shifted, casting the hall in a golden glow. Lyra and Vera stepped forward together, their movements perfectly in sync. Their eyes burned with the same quiet certainty, the look of people who had already decided his fate. This was never an escort mission, Lyra said, her voice calm but carrying weight. It was a search, and you, Jack Marlowe, are what we've been searching for. Before he could reply, the floor beneath them trembled. Dust drifted from the high arches as a deep, distant rumble shook the walls. The guards tightened their formation, not facing the twins, not facing Jack, but facing the doors as if something outside was trying to get in. What's going on? Jack demanded. Vera's gaze didn't waver from the massive entrance. It has already begun, she said. They know we've found you. Lyra reached for his hand, pressing the warm, humming sphere into his palm. From this moment, you are bound to us. Your fight is our fight. Your life is ours to protect and to claim. Jack felt the weight of her words sink into him like a stone dropped into deep water. The rumble grew louder, now mixed with a sound like claws scraping stone. A shadow passed under the crack of the great doors. Too large, too alien to belong to anything he'd seen before. The twins stepped to either side of him, their shoulders touching his. Lyra's tone was steady. We didn't bring you here to guard us, Jack. Vera finished the thought without looking at him. We brought you here to lead us. The door shuddered under a heavy blow, and Jack realized with a cold certainty whatever was coming through would decide not only his fate, but the fate of both women and whatever throne they were fighting for. The easy job he'd agreed to was gone forever. and the real mission was only just beginning.